up, you guys? It's Jordan from the Paddle and Pivot podcast, and welcome back to another episode. I'm so grateful that you joined me today for another episode. Today's episode isn't going to be as science-based. I know last week's wasn't either. This is just going to be more chill and talk to you about my journey to medical school because it's that time. It's officially that time that I am actually finally starting medical school. I'm so grateful, so happy, anxious as well, but I'm gonna get into all of that after I do a little catch up and after I do my intro segments. When I think about what I've been reading recently, I finished Reckless probably about a week ago, and I am enjoying this series, but I think it could be better. It's about 3 stars for me. It's interesting, but it's a little bit too slow moving. I don't know if it's because it's a YA series that it's slow moving or what, but it's not my favorite. I started reading Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I'm enjoying it so far. I just wanted something light, cute, like summer vibes, as I talked about in the last episode. So I'm really enjoying reading that. As for what I'm watching, I finished Cheat Unfinished Business this past weekend, I believe. And then I listened to the Reality Receipts podcast recap about it. It was a little slow at first, but it picked up towards the end. I really enjoyed the show, but it wasn't as much drama as other reality TV shows that I typically watch. And then I started Sneaky Link, which is another reality TV show on Netflix. And that one is definitely more messy. Basically, the premise of the show is there's a bunch of people who say that they want to be in serious relationships, but they all have sneaky links. So they go to this hotel thinking that they're gonna like find the love of their life, and then their sneaky link shows up. And then there's Chloe Veach, I think that's her name. I think she's from Too Hot to Handle on Netflix. She's the host. And then there's a therapist that's also on there, and the therapist is kind of walking them through like building intimacy and emotional intelligence and all that stuff. And their objective basically is to decide if they want to turn their sneaky link into a relationship, if they want to start a relationship with someone else, or if there's no one there for them but to learn what they value in a relationship. So it's definitely interesting and it's giving spicy. The Reality Receipts podcast recap this as well, so I will be listening to that after I watch the corresponding episodes. What else have I been up to? Still working as a phlebotomist. My summer vacation is almost over, which is crazy. I start school on the 21st, which is so early, but I've been enjoying my experience as a phlebotomist. I really like all of my coworkers. We got along really well. It's just a really good group of people to work with, and they're really encouraging and helpful to me, and we just got along really well. I'm trying to think if there's any other updates that I have. I think that's pretty much it, so I'm gonna get right into the intro segments. So this is season 1, episode 20. I can't believe we're at episode 20. That's crazy. Which is just my journey to medical school. The quote of the day is, "Success is the result of persistence, not perfection." And I chose this quote because my journey to medical school hasn't been stereotypical, hasn't been perfect, but the persistence that I've seen in myself in pursuit of this goal is what, one, shows me that I really value it, but it's also, that's more important to me than doing the same thing as everybody else or following the traditional path. My pedal moment is that I'm getting more comfortable doing phlebotomy at work, and I've gotten good feedback from my patients saying that it doesn't hurt at all, or that I make them feel really comfortable, and I'm really good, really quick. So I'm really proud of myself for that. And then my pivot moment would be that I just had a little mini mental breakdown on Sunday. I'm just overtired, overwhelmed, anxious about like some stuff in my personal life, and then also starting school soon and feeling like I don't have my whole summer. A lot of my friends aren't at home for the summer because 2 of my best friends are in medical school. 2 of my best friends live in America, so everyone's just kind of everywhere. So it's a bit of a strange summer. My best friend and I are actually a long distance friendship, and normally in the summertime we're both at home and we do our lunch breaks together, and this summer she's not here, so it's a little bit of an adjustment for that. Getting into the prompts from last episode. 1, what's one thing that you accomplished this spring? I would say my graduation would be probably my top accomplishment. I'm very proud of myself for earning my master's degree. 2, what's one goal that you have for the summer? I think to establish healthy routines that allow me to have a better work-life balance. And write 3 summer affirmations. I would say, what is meant for me will not pass me by, live in the moment, and it will all work out. Those would be my 3 summer affirmations. So without further ado, let's get into the main part of the episode and talk about my journey to medical school. So I kind of tried to structure this episode, but it's going to be just more of a yap session. So just bear with me. It is late at night. It's currently 10:45 when I'm recording this because that's just how the cookie crumbled today. So just bear with me. We'll get it all together. First, I wanted to talk about my timeline. So I graduated from high school in 2019, and I also did dual enrollment while I was in high school. So I finished my associate's degree at the same time that I got my high school diploma. I have my associate's degree in psychology, and about halfway through my associate's degree, I realized that I wanted to go to medical school, so I started to take some more of the basic science classes. I really enjoyed my psychology courses, and at first I thought that I wanted to be a lawyer, so that's why I wanted to do a degree in psychology. And then as I got more into psychology, I was like, wait, I really like this. So I wanted to be a psychologist. And then when we got more into like the biological side of it, I realized that I really enjoyed that, and that made me look into becoming a psychiatrist, and then it just really evolved from there. Following my high school and dual enrollment, I went to undergrad at The Ohio State University from 2019, and I graduated in fall 2022. So about half of my degree was during COVID. That was definitely a challenge, and going from a smaller place to such a big school, for reference, the population in Bermuda is about 60,000, and that's also the population of students at Ohio State. So it was definitely a big adjustment. Like, some of my lecture halls had more people than I had in my graduating class. Like, it was so crazy. So it was a little bit of an adjustment at first. I struggled a little bit with my calculus class because calculus is just not my strong suit, and then such a big class, and it was my first semester in college, so that was just a lot. I did pass, but that was a little bit of a struggle. And then another class that I struggled in was organic chemistry too. I've heard so many people say that they struggle with organic chemistry, and that was definitely my journey as well. I took that class online actually, and I took a professor that wasn't necessarily recommended the most, but I thought that I would be okay. And so looking back on that situation, I would give more weight to the recommendations that other students have for professors. My bachelor's degree is in neuroscience, and I have 2 minors, one in clinical and individual differences, which is a psychology minor, and another minor in pharmaceutical sciences. I was really interested in all of those degree areas because to me neuroscience just went a little more biological than psychology, and since I knew that I wanted to go to medical school, that sounded more interesting to me. And then with psychology, I already have my associates in psychology. I love to learn about it, and so definitely doing that clinical psychology minor was a nice supplement to a lot of my neuroscience courses. And then with the pharmaceutical sciences, I've always been interested in kind of how drugs work and like drug interactions and all that type of stuff. So that was just kind of a special interest area for me. A lot of the courses for these minors and my pre-med classes overlapped, so that combined with my associate's degree was why I was able to graduate a semester early, even though I had all of that going on. By the time that I finished, my GPA wasn't the highest, so that definitely impacted my ability to get into medical school, which I'm gonna get into in 2 seconds. I think that it was a pretty good experience overall. I did have some struggles, but overall it did what it needed to do. I got my degree. I ended up being successful in the long run, and I formed a lot of valuable friendships that I'm still in contact with to this day, 2.5 years later. I took my MCAT at the end of my junior year, between junior and senior year, and that's also when I applied to medical school. So I took my MCAT in May of 2022, and I submitted my application to medical school in July of 2022 as well. Some of my pre-med advisors advised me not to submit my application that cycle, but I knew that I would regret if I didn't at least try, because I always would have wondered what if I could have gotten in. And I had heard a lot of stories about people with less than ideal scores getting into medical school, so I thought that I would just give it my best shot. I also know that as an international student, it can be very difficult to get into medical school. It's harder than it is for Americans or permanent residents, and also we are limited in the schools that we can apply to. So during my application process, I was rejected from all of the schools that I applied to. I don't remember how many I applied to, but I was rejected from all of the schools that I applied to, and I received an offer from a medical school to do at the time it was a certificate program, but now it is a master's degree, and it was a bridge program to get into medical school. And as long as you had the correct requirements, you were almost guaranteed to get in. And that was very interesting to me. And I liked the idea that you were guaranteed to get in at the end of it. You didn't have to, there weren't a limited amount of spots. So if the entire class met the requirements, the entire class would get into the medical school class. So that was definitely attractive to me. And then I started that program in July of 2023. And at the end of my first year, I was unsuccessful in meeting the requirements to start medical school that fall. So I had to do a second year, and that's when I completed my master's degree this past May. And I received my acceptance to medical school this year, and I will be starting in the next couple weeks. I'm very excited, and as you can tell from the journey that I just described, it's been a long time coming, and I'm very proud of myself for finally making it happen. And I'm just excited to see where it goes from here, because although my journey was longer than I expected, it has really helped me to develop and hone my passion for medicine, and also start to shape part of what I want my career to look like when I am a physician. The next thing that I wanted to talk about was building my application. If you don't know about medical school applications, there's several components to it: your grades, research, extracurricular activities, shadowing, volunteering, leadership positions, your MCAT score, letters of recommendation, and your personal statement. Writing your personal statement is really difficult, and I can get into that another day. I'm not sure if I'm the best person to talk about that, but if you are interested, feel free to DM me or email me, and I can just let you know from my personal experience. For research, I had participated in one research project. It wasn't a major project. I wasn't first author or anything like that, but I just helped with some data analysis for a project, and it wasn't directly related to healthcare. It was related to public health. I really enjoyed that experience because it allowed me to dip my feet into research and see some of the work that goes into it, and really value research for what it is, because that is an important part of medicine as we practice evidence-based medicine, which I have talked about on this podcast before. For extracurriculars, one of my major extracurriculars was being part of the Ohio State Club Gymnastics team. That being part of that team was actually transformational for me. It allowed me to form a lot of friendships, get outside of my comfort zone, learn a completely different sport, because I didn't start gymnastics until I went to university. And I also had a leadership position within that organization as the risk manager, so making sure that everyone was being safe at all times, making sure that we had first aid equipment on hand, all of that. Some other extracurriculars that I participated in was the Momentum Contemporary Ballet group. I was a choreographer for that, and I grew up dancing my entire life, so adding that back in was definitely just a release for me. I also participated in the Minority Association of Pre-Medical Students. I was more of just a general member in that group. I showed up to certain events, and that really helped with networking. I actually met one of my medical school mentors through that, and I still talk to her to this day. I think I got connected with her probably back in 2021, and we still talk all the time. Whenever I want to check on her or I have a new accomplishment, I'll just send her a message, and that was really a great part. I definitely recommend finding those connections and mentorship in any way that you can, whether it's formally or informally. As for jobs, I always had a summer job, whether related to healthcare or not. I worked as a camp counselor, I worked in HR, I have also worked as a medical assistant and a front desk assistant. I've also had more administrative roles, such as reviewing resumes or being a supervisor, being a research assistant, and then also just being a general administrative assistant. For shadowing, I tried to shadow as many doctors as I could, but it was a little bit challenging, especially because a large part of my application process was during COVID, so shadowing was a lot more difficult. But I have shadowed an internal medicine doctor, an OBGYN, a urologist, a neurologist, and a pediatrician. I've also had conversations with other types of doctors as well, but it wasn't directly shadowing experience and watching them interact with patients. As for volunteering, I actually did a lot more volunteering after I finished my undergraduate degree because there were just more opportunities available to me when I did move to Florida. During my undergraduate degree, I was volunteering at a hospital, just kind of directing patients where to go within the hospital, in the cancer hospital at Ohio State. And then I also worked as a therapy volunteer for probably a year and a half with children with ADHD and other mental health conditions. Let's see, what else did I do in undergrad? That was the main things that I did in undergrad. And then when I was doing my master's degree, I was able to volunteer at free clinics in the Florida area, and that was honestly my favorite experience. And it's definitely something that I am comfortable talking about and I can go into much detail about because it also overlaps with public health, which is another interest of mine. I would say that the most important thing about these different experiences is that you can talk to them. If there's an experience that you didn't really like or that you can't really elaborate on, really think about if that's worth including on your activities list, because it's better to have less experiences that you can talk more deeply about than to have a bunch of experiences that weren't really valuable to you or shape your career as a physician. A lot of people ask why you wanted to be a doctor. That's something that you really have to develop, and it continues to develop throughout the course of your career. For me, I really enjoy helping people. I also have a passion for providing access to healthcare and finding answers that people don't have. Specifically, I am interested in being an OBGYN at the moment, and I'm really passionate about women's health because I think that it's an underrepresented area. We weren't included in research for so many years. There's so many problems that are specific to women's health that aren't being addressed, like the research about menopause, the research about birth control, and all these things that still need so much more work. I also really value the primary care type relationship that you can have with your OBGYN, because I like seeing patients year after year after year. I worked in primary care offices for years, and I really enjoyed that you can get to know patients by them coming to the office time and time again. But I also really enjoy OBGYN because they have that procedural aspect. A large part of their practice is procedures, and you can just really vary what your days look like. Overall, I value being a physician because I value the practice of evidence-based medicine. I like being able to find solutions to problems, and then I also just like to help people. And being a physician is truly the only thing that I can imagine myself doing. I wanted to talk a little bit about expectations versus realities for medical school and the application process and all of that. I'm not going to lie to you, I assumed that I would get in on the first try, and then I assumed that I would get in on the second try, but I got in on my third try. And I feel like that is an experience that's more common than you would think. I also thought that I would score higher on my MCAT than I would. If you ask me, that is a horrible exam. I hate it. I'm so glad that I never have to take it again. It's just a really strange exam. I know a lot of people will say that like your medical school boards are harder, and I'll be able to speak to that in 2 years. But the way that the MCAT is set up, it just feels like it's designed for you to fail. It's such a difficult exam, and if you are in the process of taking the MCAT or studying for the MCAT, please remember that a score does not reflect your intelligence. If you get a bad score on the MCAT, that doesn't mean that you're going to be a bad doctor. There are several successful doctors who have had to take the MCAT multiple times because the exam is just poorly designed. Some other expectations versus reality. I thought that everyone would be super, super competitive, which it depends on the people that you are around. And I also think it depends on the school culture a little bit. In my experience, I'm not in medical school yet, but I do have some friends that are in medical school, and they have been super open to helping me, providing me with resources. Anytime I text them to ask a question, they have answers for me and they respond in like a timely manner, and I'm really, really grateful for them. I actually made a lot of friends during my master's degree, which was connected to my medical school, and I still have those friendships to this day. I went to one of my friends' weddings 2 weeks ago that I met when I was in my master's program, and she was in medical school. So I'm really hopeful about the friendships that I'll be able to make when I do start medical school. I have faced several challenges along the way, including being tired, because this is a long process. I've already completed 6 years of school and I have 4 left, and then another 4 of residency. So I've definitely learned how important it is for me to take care of myself. Workout, sleep, self-care, all of those things are really, really, really important, and I cannot emphasize that enough. Facing rejections is also not fun, obviously, and the hardest time that I had last year was watching some of my best friends start medical school, and I was supposed to start not at the same school but at the same time as them, and watching them live out the dream that's mine. But I think that it'll just help me to be a better teacher, a better physician, a better person overall, because it really taught me about determination and knowing my worth and self-esteem and all of those things. I also faced setbacks, as I mentioned before, and it really just emphasizes the fact that you don't entirely determine your path all the time, and to really just trust the process, which is something that I'm working on each and every single day, because trusting the process is not easy for me. I said to one of my friends the other day, I do trust the process, but I might be kicking and screaming the entire time, but I am trusting the process. Looking back, I would just give myself more grace, and I think that I would detach from a specific timeline. I think that it's more important to focus on the goal rather than the specific timeline of when the goal will be achieved. It's good to have an idea, but it's important to be flexible in how you approach that goal, because there's more than one way to skin a cat. When you say that, like, it's not the best metaphor, but it's the one that I think of right now. There's more than one way to achieve the same goal, and just because it doesn't go according to your plan doesn't mean that it's not going to work out, and doesn't mean that there isn't a better way for you to accomplish that goal. Advice that I would have for pre-meds would be to really form your network, to clarify your routines and values and what's important to you, because I think that as life gets busier and busier, if you have a strong foundation, you're more likely to be successful. And I would also say to do as much shadowing. This goes with networking, but do as much shadowing. Look at medical school influencers, because I DM a lot of medical school influencers, and we have full conversations, and it's given me insight into what the reality of being a doctor is, because it's not like it looks on Grey's Anatomy at all. And I think it's important to have those connections, because especially as a Black woman, we are underrepresented in medicine, so it's important to talk to people about the experiences that they have. There's actually a podcast called the Black Surgeons Podcast. It's not released super regularly, but they have experiences of a lot of different Black surgeons on there, and if you're considering being a doctor and you are Black, or you just want to know those experiences, I think that's a really good podcast to listen to. But overall, I would say you got this. Remember to take a break and keep the end in view. That was actually my high school's motto, Respirate for them, keep the end in view. But just remember why you're on this journey, and that will really, really push you through to the end, even in the hardest of times. Today was a little bit of a different episode, but I do still have journal prompts before I leave you today. 1, and these could be applied to medical school, or they can be applied to like any goal or dream that you have. 1. What would you tell your younger self knowing that everything worked out? 2. What dreams do you have for your future self? And 3. How does it feel to know that you accomplished your goal? Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Petal and Pivot podcast and for allowing me to open up about my medical school journey. I think I'm going to try to do like updates about medical school every now and then, maybe once a semester or something, just because it is my life and this is my podcast. So I just talk about whatever comes to mind, and these episodes are a little bit easier for me to record because there's less research for me to do. So I might do some more just casual talkative podcast episodes. Please let me know if you would like that, anything you would like me to talk about. I'm just gonna see how everything goes with medical school. I am optimistic that I will still be able to create content for you guys, but we'll just see how things go because obviously medical school has to take priority. And before you go, in the comments below, let me know what type of doctor you want to be if you are pre-med or a medical student. And let me know what else you want to know about my medical school journey or anything in general. And I'm more than happy to share that with you. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Petal and Pivot podcast. Don't forget to follow us on TikTok and Instagram at Petal and Pivot Pod. We also have a newsletter that comes out on our off weeks of the podcast every other Thursday on Substack. We have a YouTube channel that we recently launched so that you can listen to the podcast on there if you prefer. And I think that's all our social media, but please check the description box below for any questions that you have because it might be addressed on there. And thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.